Hey guys, it's Chris, the Reluctant Psalm. If you're watching the video, you may notice that I'm in a little bit of a different setting than I usually am. We have been just absolutely stretched thin lately, and we've been really trying to do everything we can to keep up with content. So we've fallen behind a little bit, but I figured this would be a great opportunity for us to just kind of catch you guys up on what's going on with the Reluctant Psalm and everything. We've released 33 episodes. I think this would be 34. Um, and we're just really happy and really thankful. Everything's been going really well. We're super impressed with kind of the way that we've gotten as many people to turn out as they have. We've gotten a couple no's, which is totally fine. That happens. But as an overwhelming amount of yeses, actually. So we're just kind of in the process of trying to line some things up. We're in October, November, December for people in the sales industry. That's O&D. It's a very busy time, especially in alcohol sales. Usually makes up about 30 to 40% of sales for the year for some people. So hectic. Additionally, people that are in sales may know that this is the fall allocation period, as well as Burgundy season. A lot of things are coming in and out, a lot of moving pieces. Additionally, we've talked in the past on the podcast about how we do some consulting for a wine bar. The wine bar has been going really well. It's business in San Francisco is a little weird lately. I think would suffice it to say. We're hoping that things kind of get back to normal, and some offices like Salesforce and Visa and the Transamerica building have done a mandatory back to office 4 days a week. So that's been really great. It's giving us a lot of foot traffic downtown in San Francisco. A lot of places are doing really well from that, so we're grateful. Um, you know, we have elected a new mayor, so we'll see what changes there. Obviously, presidential election is a whole nother thing. We're talking about all the time now tariffs and things of that nature. So all things that I think we can eventually kind of touch on. For anybody that hasn't seen this podcast before, my name's Chris. I'm the Reluctant Psalm. My wife and I run this podcast together. She helps me with most of the back end stuff. I am usually just good at talking. This is officially our season 2. Season 1 has been video archived or audio archived on Podbean, which is what we upload to. So this kind of harkens back to season 1 a little bit. So I may be a little rusty talking to myself. Season 1 was a lot of fun. We started it during the pandemic. It was mostly just me drinking something and talking about a region. I did all kinds of stuff. I did pre-brewed coffee from the store. I did an episode on beers. I did an episode on German Riesling, on Pinot Noir, on different bubbles. I did an episode on triple sec. I got really drunk. And we didn't have video. So that's another way that we've kind of upgraded for season 2. Additionally, season 2 always had like has been interview format and has been in our home studio that we've been working out of since May. We've just entered December. We're entering December. And the podcast started May 15th. Like I said, we have 33 episodes. We've kind of, started the podcast off as a way to just talk about the wine industry. And it's slowly become like a hospitality industry podcast, which is really fun, or like a beverage industry podcast. Um, we're hoping that over the coming months that we can start nailing down some chefs. We'd really love to get some chefs involved. So if you are a chef and you're listening to this, we'd love to have you on. I have a few people that are interested, but we really want to kind of like run the gamut of the hospitality industry. Right now, we're very focused on San Francisco, and that's great. Obviously, we're here, we're located here, so it makes sense. But we're also kind of, I think, considering doing a little Chicago tour at some point. We've had a couple restaurants reach out to us about doing interviews. We unfortunately are not really willing to do Zoom interviews. We really want to control the quality of the audio as well as the quality of the video. And unfortunately, there's a lot of unforeseen issues with Zoom or FaceTime or whatever. And we deal with plenty of issues, just doing the podcast as we already do. Any of our guests probably have dealt with, this is not working right now. This is not working right now. Um, but we're getting there. We're developing nice systems and routines, and I feel good. I feel like things have been going really well. So, yeah, let's see. So season two, I mean, we've really done, like I said, a major focus on interviews and interviewing people throughout the greater beverage industry. We've talked to winemakers like Scott Shapley from Roar and Flywheel, Grant Coulter from Hundred Sons, John Scupney from Lang and Reed, to name a few. Will Henry from Lumen. I sorry for anybody I'm missing. Massimo from Cantina Lois and Luca from Paitine Winery and Barbaresco. We've interviewed SOMs, advanced SOMs, master SOMs. We've interviewed general managers of restaurants. We've interviewed wine directors. We've interviewed retailers. We have a couple more retailers on the horizon that I'm really excited about. And yeah, we've really kind of like seen this evolution of the podcast from what was considered to be like a wine podcast that was somewhat kind of targeted towards consumers in a sense of like, you know, um, we want people to drink more wine, and we do want people to drink more wine. And I hope that people listen to this and want to drink wine if they don't drink wine, within reason. I'm not advocating alcoholism, but uh, but drink more wine. Help us out. The farmers need it. The large, mass-produced factory made vodkas and gins and rums, they don't need your help. The small businesses need your help. And there's a lot of employees that work for these larger companies that need their jobs too. So I'm not saying that we should burn these large companies at the stake. I'm just saying that I think that it's important to take time to kind of like be considerate of what you're having and what you're drinking and like where you're spending your money. And I think that goes for stores and things like that too. Thanksgiving just passed. We had Black Friday, and Black Friday was cool, but then there's always Small Business Saturday, which I've always loved and appreciated. And I think that's something that's really important, is making sure to like be aware, and realize that you have to get some things from the large stores, but getting some things from the small stores every now and then is good. It's important. Supports your local community. Uh, and I think, you know, we could all do with a little bit more consideration. Um, Obviously, keeping this, keeping from going on too many tangents with myself is always been a struggle of mine, but do my best to circle back to the topic of the podcast. The podcast again has gone through this metamorphosis. It's really cool. It's been so much fun, and we're very happy with the podcast. Things are going really well. We're not trying to monetize this podcast aggressively. We're not trying to, make a bunch of money. We're not trying to turn into a reel factory. We post reels on Instagram because it's a great way for engagement. It's a great way to share what's going on. Um, we use this program called Opus AI that takes the video and it cuts up clips of like funny things or insightful things. And we try to pick like one that is really good. And I think that it shines a great light um, on our guests. And, we just like to kind of like share the stories. There's so many great people in this industry, and we're so grateful to work in this industry. And sometimes I just wish that people would know each other and get to know each other a little bit more. And it's hard, in San Francisco. I can't necessarily speak to the rest of the country. We're seeing a consolidation of roles. There's some great restaurants. I won't name them, but there's one restaurant I'm thinking of in particular that's open from 6 a.m. to midnight. It's quite busy. They do a lot of business, and they have two managers. Okay, we're back. Um, yeah, the restaurant has two managers for 16 hours of business, 5 days a week, which is quite a lot. I mean, I've worked at restaurants that do less hours that have four managers. And these are managers that are also helping with payroll, They're helping with, tips. They're helping with scheduling. They're running the beverage program. They're probably ordering everything from the toilet paper in the restrooms to extra silverware to linen. There's a lot that goes on into restaurants. And unfortunately, it seems like over the last, year, 2 years, 3 years, I mean, really since the pandemic, and since we've seen the wake of what's happened due to the pandemic, there's been more and more layoffs, more and more consolidation of roles, and people are just more and more busy. We decided that we wanted to do a portfolio mixer at our house last year in December. We had a pretty fun turnout. It was cool. We just opened up a bunch of wine and put it on the table and invited people over to just kind of hang out, eat cheese, taste some wine, and meet each other. And it was just really cool to like see everybody meet each other for the first time. These are people that at this point I've worked with for 3 years, and you know, I was so cool to see the people that liked each other, and I mean everybody really liked each other, but I think that we need a little bit more kind of time and attention um, into our day to focus on like opening up our minds and broadening our horizons. And you can get so busy and you can get so bogged down in the just process of things that it makes it really hard. So the podcast is kind of designed to be a consumable way of deepening your connection and understanding of the hospitality industry through a holistic manner. We're not trying to make you listen to the podcast. We're trying to be here and be a resource if you want to listen to the podcast. The whole idea is to give back to the community. We're very lucky to be as much part of the hospitality industry and the beverage industry as we are. And we want to give back. We want everybody to be able to hear from each other, hear different people's ways of thinking about their programs, hear different things that are insightful, share advice with each other, and also kind of destigmatize wine. Um, Wine is something I think of a lot during the holidays, even though I've got a beer here. And I think about wine because I think about going back and visiting my family. And I think about when I was young and I first got into the wine industry and I was somming or wine buyer, a GM, or whatever position I had with whatever responsibility I had, always had wine involved. And I would bring back wines and I would share them with my family. And, you know, uh, I think when you're new and you're really passionate about something, you hope that when you do something like that and you share something like that, that it's just going to like change somebody's life. Um, and I think that that's amazing because you're wanting to share your love and your passion for things with people that you love. And I think that's amazing. But I also think that, sometimes wine, but not just wine, many things can kind of come off as, I don't know, too in depth or too intimidating or too hard to understand, too hard to wrap your head around. And wine is one of those things that's always been that way. It's incredibly complicated. That's why so many of us love it. But we need to remember that it's not incredibly complicated for many people. It's a simple thing. It's a beverage. Do you like it? Do you want a glass of wine? Great, have it. I think we all understand the importance of a good, patio pounder, a delicious rosé, a wine that you can just have, or crushable wine. We're thinking of, I can think of so many different terms, but I think that, it's something that even we from time to time like to have, but we deal with constantly the need to justify the expense of many of the things that we sell. And so by doing so, we sometimes go way, way, way off the deep end, which is important in many cases, right? Like, how do you sell a bottle of DRC? You don't just say, like, hey, it's really good and it's Pinot Noir and it's light bodied. You would have to, discuss the story. You would obviously be remiss to not mention the people that are involved, like Aubert de Villaine. Um, you would have to talk about, you could talk about so many things. You could talk about the climate, you could talk about the soil, you could talk about terroir, you could talk about the reason that it's so expensive is because it was gray marketed heavily for a really long time. The winery decided to up their prices because everybody was selling off their shit anyways. There's so many things that you could talk about. Um, And in a way, it makes things incredibly more complex. So now here I am making everything more complex. I think, the moral of the story that I was trying to get to is that, during the podcast, we often try to drink a wine blind. And I say this all the time. It's not always a blindable wine. It's very often it's unfair. And sometimes it's just me picking some random thing that I think is cool that I would like to share with that person because it's really infrequent that you get to just like sit down and share a bottle of wine with somebody anymore. We all have our friends, we all have, coworkers, we all have, mentors and stuff like that we get to like spend time with and sit down and have a bottle of wine with. You know, having a bottle of wine and sitting down for an hour conversation with somebody that you know of as an acquaintance is so cool. It's so eye opening, and I've really loved it. Trying to get better about talking a little less and opening up the floor to these people a little bit more. But it's fun. It's just really exciting to be able to sit and have a conversation with people and talk about the thing that we all love so much, which is hospitality industry, wine as well, obviously, but beverages, beer and whiskey and everything else, I think is why we do what we do, is for a love of that, a love of the hospitality industry. So all that to be said, we share a bottle of wine blind, and then we reveal the wine. And the whole moral is: do you like it? Do you not like it? And that's kind of the simplicity behind it. And I think that that's beautiful, right? I'm all for, sitting down and having a nice meal with a friend and opening up a really cool bottle of wine and just like fucking geeking out on the wine. But, you know, it's also important to talk to your friend about like, hey, how are you? How's your family? How's work? Like, how's your mental health? One thing to kind of give a shout out to Chris Rivera about in our podcast was, him discussing things like mental health in the hospitality industry. I think it's so important, and I think that it's something that we all gloss over quite a lot because we're so used to it. But being able to sit down and have a drink with somebody and just kind of like talk to them and say like, "Hey, how are you? How are things?" Making time to kind of like deepen your relationship with somebody behind just like, yeah, we like the same wines. And you go like, well, what's their brother's name? I don't know. What do they do for work? I don't know. Or, like, how have they been doing? I don't know. Oh, they have a girlfriend. Really? I didn't know that. It's like we we spend so much time talking about wine, we forget to talk about the humanity that's behind it. We forget to talk about the things that are involved in the wine industry, which is the people, the winemakers, and the people that are involved in picking the grapes. You know, I have had many kind of hot takes throughout my career, and I've probably been, a little bullheaded in many ways, and I'm always trying to be a little bit more open minded, and I'm always trying to listen a little bit more and learn. Um, but I think sometimes we lose ourselves. The wine comes in and costs a lot of money, and it feels really good to spend money. Then you put it on the wine list, and you're really excited to sell it, and you're like, "Oh fuck, this is so cool!" And when you sell it, you feel really cool. But we forget that the person that made that wine was somebody that was working in a winery, in most cases working in a winery, and in waders or flannel shirts or whatever they're wearing, just very casually. It's a labor of love, it's labor intensive, and I think that we forget like how much kind of fun and hard work goes into it. um, and we're so ready to talk about the terroir, and we're so ready to talk about the climate, the vintage, the scores, whatever, whoever rated it, however many points. That one of the things that I think I really love to see is when I go to a bar and or a wine bar or a restaurant, and the member of the staff says like, "This is somebody that I know. I really love them. I love their wine. They're great people." Yeah, I mean, in a way, you kind of have to just like take their word for it. Like, yeah, they're great people, but also like it's just cool to be able to think about supporting people like that, and supporting people that give a shit and care about what they're doing and care about, the environment and care about giving back and care about, kind of like making sure that there's future wine to be made and making sure that like they're being good stewards to the land. And again, there's great flavor profiles that we can get out of the soil, and I think that's just as important. But I think sometimes we kind of, at least me and many places I go, people kind of forget to mention how great the people are that are involved. Um, so yeah, I mean, really, that's the whole idea, is to tell the story behind the immediate interaction, right? Like, we all spend time at a table. We've spent time at a table. We've dined, or we've been a server, or we've been a som, or if you work in a restaurant or you work in a retailer, I'm sure you've dined in a restaurant. And we have these micro interactions with other people, like the servers or the bartenders, the soms, or the customers and or guests in many cases. um, and it's very brief, and it's I don't want to say shallow, but it's a very simple interaction, and I think that's great. I think that's cool in so many ways, because like, you can have a difficult customer that you only have to deal with for an hour and a half, or 2 hours, if they're really taking their time. But I also think that we don't often spend time talking about, like, what's behind the person, what's behind the glass, what's behind the suit, what's behind their them holding the wine list. Like, I don't know. I mean, wine is just infinitely complex, but it can be so much more simple. And the question about, like, what do you normally like, I think, is a really great way to kind of like softball it. Um, but again, here I go on a tangent. Uh, but I think, again, one of the important parts is just kind of like deepening people's relationship and understanding that we're all humans, and we're all deserving of respect, and we're all deserving of time, and I just feel really, really grateful to be able to kind of share people's stories with everyone. um yeah, so we're going to keep doing that. This is episode 33 and a half, or 34, you know holiday special, I guess. December's here, as I was saying. It's going to be very busy. We've got a lot on our plate, and we're going to try to pack in a couple extra episodes into this month and not fall behind. We may fall behind. We'll keep you posted. We're still going to aim for an episode a week, like we've always done. Uh, and if we do take time off, we may take time off, at the tail end of December. The holidays, like I said, are here, and we're going to be very busy, and want to spend time with each other, and want to spend time with family if we can. And, I think that it's something that's very important to us to communicate, is that this is still very much a priority for us. This is still very much important to us, and I feel incredibly grateful to be the person sitting here with this microphone and sharing a conversation with my imaginary friend here, sharing a beer with my imaginary friend. Um, so yeah, and we've kind of gone through a couple different transitions. Again, as mentioned, one of the things that we started at the very beginning was started a members page where I was doing kind of like a cool in-depth wine review about different wines, and I was scoring them on 3 different systems instead of 97 point, 98 point. We were doing things like 1 out of 5, cost for quality. 1 out of 5, is it classic? And 1 out of 5, do I like it? Because I think it's helpful to kind of like silo those things out. Anyways, that product was kind of designed for consumers. And, it seems like the majority of our fan base, for whatever reason, you guys, I guess, like to listen to me, or at least listen to our guests. And we have a lot of followers that are, serious hospitality people, serious wine people. And we decided that we don't really need that online product right now, and we don't need that product to sell. We've had conversations about doing merch, like t-shirts and wine keys and stickers and books, and what have you. But nothing has really kind of like come to fruition that speaks to us necessarily, or that we feel like we need to get done right away. So if you want to support the podcast at all, just tell your friends, tell other people that are in the service industry, tell other people that are in the wine industry. We try to have sales reps on, try to have soms, we try to have managers. We're going to get servers, we're going to get bartenders, we're going to get chefs. We've got retailers on, winemakers on, national salespeople on. We have on the horizon, and I won't say anything because I don't want to spoil it or jinx it. We have somebody that's going to be with us that represents a glassware company, because that's also something that I think is super cool and that I really want to highlight. So we're really trying to just like fully touch um, as much of the industry as we can without kind of like losing ourselves. And so, like I said, we've put a pause on the product to really kind of like focus on the breadth of our reach. So we don't have anything to monetize the podcast. It takes time. It takes a lot of energy. It does cause stress from time to time. You may or may not think that there's some copious amounts of drinking that happen after the episode ends, which is the case. Unfortunately, no matter how late I go to bed, my child always wakes up at the same time. Um, so it makes the next mornings a little hard, which puts things behind a little bit more. So all of this to say that if you love what we're doing, and if you want to support us, just share. If you haven't been on the podcast, shoot me a DM, shoot me a text. Let's set it up. I'd love to do something. I would love to have an opportunity to interview you. I'd love to have an opportunity to tell your story. We've got some stuff set up for January. I've got a couple big guests that I've been, kind of chasing for a while, and I'm hoping to get them on the book soon. But there's no guest too big or too small. I mean, really, like the moral and the hope is that the podcast can be focused on, again, remaining humble and sharing a love for wine and sharing a love for the hospitality industry. We don't necessarily want to prioritize, pretentiousness or, you know, like unapproachability. We want to, again, tell the story about the person. Somebody can't come on and tell me, about wine and tell me what wine should mean to me. And they can, but it doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to change, right? So people's opinion about what wine should mean to you and why wine should be the most important thing is fine. But, really the podcast has, again, been really focused on telling the stories of the people in the hospitality industry, because that's really where I find my love and I find my passion. And I miss the hospitality industry dearly. But I like sales because, like I always say, it's like I get to work in 100+ restaurants all at one time. I get to contribute. I get to come up with ideas. I get to help people. And I think that's really, really cool. And I feel really grateful for that. Let's see. Other important things to talk about. We've done a couple pop-up events, which are really cool. We're not advertising them aggressively. We're not making money off of them. We're just kind of like doing it as a way to, again, broaden our reach a little bit. The first one we did was at Holbrook House. We had a great event. We had our friend Mateo, who's been on the podcast. He's a DJ. He also runs a couple restaurants, but he uh, he came out and he DJ'd and he was playing music, playing vinyl funk music. We were pouring Sardinian wines. He's Sardinian, so we called it a Sardinian takeover. It's $5 for 3 wines, and we had meat, and cheese, and stuff. And we did the tickets through Eventbrite, and it was really cool and really fun. Cost us a little bit of money. And the next thing we did was continue our relationship with Mateo. We went through the Montesacro Soma location, and we did a like pop up with Casey, who's the winemaker at Granachista Winery, who I hope to have on the podcast at some point too. And we featured a bunch of his wines. We had flights. They did a small tasting menu that his wines were paired with. It was really cool. I think I don't even remember. I want to say that it was effectively 3 courses and 3 wines, and it was $80, which in San Francisco is kind of a steal. And then we poured some of the, his Blanc, his sparkling Grenache Blanc, complimentary for people that were coming in and doing the tastings. Um, and that was a lot of fun. And we got to eat. We got to see a lot of our friends. We got to see a lot of people. There was a lot of like regular consumers that came in and were able to experience these wines and meet the winemaker. It's like you just randomly go to dinner at this restaurant, or you've made reservations there, and you come in and uh, the beverage director's there, winemaker's there. I'm there for whoever the fuck I am. I guess I'm just a podcaster. Um, but but you got to meet a bunch of cool people and talk about wine and try cool wines and hear the story. And Casey's awesome and Mateo's awesome and I'm okay. So it was really fun to kind of have that event. We have a couple more that we're kind of planning. We're kind of like throwing out there. Um, so we're hoping to get those launched back up in January and maybe do a monthly one. So stay tuned. Follow us on Instagram. Look for posts. Text me. Whatever. I'm always here. I want to be able to do everything I can to help anybody in whatever way. We're our network is really good. We've met so many great people, and if you need help finding somebody that's amazing to work for you, or you're trying to open your own place or whatever, if we can be of any help, we want to be of help. And yeah, I guess again, just very grateful. So we'll be doing more podcasts. Like I said, I'm sorry. We'll be doing more podcasts. We'll be doing more pop-ups, and there may be merch eventually at some point or some kind of product for you guys to support. But until then, like I said, if you could share, tell people about us, download the episodes, whatever. Everything's greatly appreciated. We're doing video on YouTube. We're doing audio everywhere that we can. And yeah, we're gonna start trying to do a little bit more. We might add another camera and start getting another angle. We may call that, season 3. We may not. We may change the formatting of the interviews a little bit more. We may not. Like I said, we've got some road trips that are very far, very far out in the planning phase. But it'd be really cool to go spend a few days in Chicago and bang out a few interviews and get to hang out in the city and enjoy things. I think that'd be really, really awesome. So yeah, I guess just stay tuned, keep listening, keep drinking wine, keep sharing with people. Stay humble, stay open. Keep your heart open, accept love. You're deserving of love. Now I need a crystal. No, wait, I just got a beer. That's better than a crystal. I don't need to cleanse myself. Sorry. Um, but but yeah, ultimately, I'm just really grateful for everything. I'm grateful for this podcast. Um, I guess I could have talked about myself a little bit more, but this is more than anything just an update on the podcast. Uh, so stay tuned for more Reluctant Som fun. Cheers. Love you guys. Of course, I spilled. Very smooth. Classic. Okay. See you guys soon. Cheers.